the industry has proven that we're not very good at data privacy, keeping secrets, etc. I do remember hearing years ago, humans are not good at keeping private keys, full stop, right? Over time, they will always fail. And we're obviously trying to combat that and eliminate single points of failure. We're making some inroads on it, but we're also in an industry, so certainly the crypto industry, where you have a lot of young players, a lot of companies that are starting, they're small, they may not have the resources to protect billions of dollars, and then they want to build a product that goes from zero to billions of dollars in a very short period of time. So this particular failure has happened over and over again. You might remember a few years ago there was an exchange called Coincheck in Japan, and they lost somewhere around $600 million of a coin called NEM coins, and they were holding it in a single signature, online hot wallet. And it doesn't take a cybersecurity genius to recognize that maybe that wasn't the right way to hold $600 million. But what happened? What happened was they started with a wallet that had nothing in it, which I would argue, single sig, hot wallet, nothing in it, that's pretty secure. But then they went about their job of growing their business, and their business grew, and went from 0 to 5 million, to 10 million, 50 million. I'm quite confident that all through this period, the technology team behind it is like, hey, we got to figure something else out, we got to use cold storage, we got to use more keys, we got to do whatever. But they didn't have time. And if you went to Tokyo at that time, you would have seen Coincheck plastered all over like every billboard, all the electronic signs, etc. They were growing their business. And sure enough, it didn't take very long, and then they were hacked, and they lost $600 million. Amazingly, the industry was so lucrative that they paid all the clients back. So it had a semi-happy ending, I guess. But it goes to show that, like, when it comes to cybersecurity, we're not very good about it to begin with. The basic premise, eliminate single points of failure. But then secondarily, you're never done. You got to keep up in the game. And the types of resources used to secure small amounts of money, whether that's $1 or $10 million, is different than billions. So anyway, this is an ongoing battle. I think it's especially difficult when you have innovative firms that are trying to grow out of nothing with small budgets. I can probably list 3 other examples of similar types of failures where they sort of got it right, but they didn't have the resources to fully do it. And then as the asset grew in size, they ended up with a failure. There's hidden breaches that people don't disclose at all. And then you're always kind of wondering, well, how does the industry get better? There are some industry groups. There are some back channels. The larger companies that have chief security officers are often getting together, collaborating, and sharing some of these stories. But it's not nearly as universal as it should be. What I mean is actually, I'm close to Stanford, right? We got Dan Bonet over there. Many of you, I'm sure, know him. And he's been at Stanford for a long time. And he describes a tale of, it used to be cryptography, okay, in the computer science department. It's like the small thing, nobody goes. Now he's the most popular professor on campus. And why is that? It's because we've got use cases that are using PKI technology we haven't seen for a long time. So I think there's a lot that's already happening just in terms of the amount of research that's going into this space. So I think continue with the first principles approach to how you do security. We want to continue to eliminate single points of failure. We need to be public, as you mentioned, open source. We need to continue to do that with our implementations. And frankly, engineers and security researchers, they are the level-headed ones about how to solve problems for the long term. The business people, I think, like I said, they get more caught up in some business realities and who's responsible and liabilities and things like that. So anyway, all the researchers here will keep them honest. I do think we can create industry groups, best practices. I do think that we can make sure that companies like Bitgo, Coinbase, others are held to account, that we are actually doing the best practices that we talked about at the beginning, and then even as we get bigger, do we still maintain that ethos? So hold us accountable and call us out. And we created it back in 2017 when we launched Wrap Bitcoin. And the companies that created it, there was Ren Protocol was in there, Kyber, and a bunch of others deserve a ton of credit for helping make it work. But then 2 years ago, this guy on Twitter keeps bugging me. He's like, you guys lost the keys. So we hadn't had to do any governance decisions. We hadn't done any signings on this multi-sig for years. And he's like, you don't have the keys. And so he just keeps bugging me. Of course, we did have the keys, but he was right that like some of those parties were no longer around, and maintaining that multi-sig over time requires some amount of ongoing attestation. Really, you should be doing it kind of every year to prove that you have everything. If you don't have something, you should be public about it. All right, good news is, it took us a while. By the way, it's just a pain in the neck to get 11 people to go sign a message. But we did eventually get it. We kind of actually rotated. There were some guys that were no longer holding those keys. He was right about that. That's fully into account.